Good evening, everyone. I'm calling this meeting of the Cleveland Heights General Regular Session of Council to order. Addie, please call the roll.
Maddox.
Here.
Posh.
Here.
Russell. Here. Larson.
Here.
Cobb.
Here.
Petrus.
Here.
Sheets.
Here.
Don't need to excuse any absent members. The amendments to the agenda, we don't have any this evening. So approval of minutes from previous meetings. Does anyone have any amendments they wanted to make to those? Or are we good to go? All right, we're approved. Moving on to communications from the mayor.
Thank you, Madam President. All right. So I did pass out a Mayor's Action Center data report to all the council members. This is an assessment as of the end of September 2025. And this is from Todd Walburn. Of the 4 categories of service requested, Public Works received about 2/3 of the total requests. Sorry, Director Klingscale. So that adds up to 2,576 out of the 4,183 requests were for the Public Works Department. And then Planning and Development was second with 1,238, and the police had 224, and Parks and Properties 145. And then there's 48 subcategories. I'm not going to go through any of those, but I did want to report out on this to let you know that private residential properties had 818 requests. And as you know, there are a lot of obstacles to accurately tracking this service requests related to housing and building issue due to a lack of integration between the Mayor's Action Center's tracking software, which is called C-Click-Fix, and the system that our housing inspectors use, which is Citizen Serve. And I wanted you to know that Todd Walburn is exploring ways to overcome those obstacles. There are 9 other subcategories with notable numbers of service requests. What we're trying to do is improve and expand communications around bagging waste, and that should help decrease service requests regarding this issue. We also see a lot of requests for service for animal-related issues. You know, we've heard a lot of that, not just from the Mayor's Action Center, but through the police dispatch. And we're trying to improve that. I'm going to actually talk about that a little bit when we have our budget hearings. And the volume of service requests has increased substantially over the past year and a half. And in a way, I think that's a good thing because we do have an ombudsman, if you will, and he's doing a really great job at communicating this through our communications department and all the other departments as well. Because what we want to do is deliver top-notch services. One of the things I did ask when we were getting the budget process together was to have Todd Walburn get all this information out to the directors, because in a certain way, this should drive what it is the directors ask for. Because if we're getting a lot of, I don't know, just requests, let's say for bulk pickup, we're behind on that, or leaf pickup or something like that. And it's over and over again. Well, we know that maybe we need more equipment, or maybe we need more laborers if we're not getting that done in a timely fashion. So I did try to get that as part of the requests that the directors are making, or have them incorporate that into the requests they were making for their budgets for 2026. Lower Lake. We continue to try to get as much transparency as we can. We're continuing to explore our options and their feasibility for how we proceed with Lower Lake. We're at the very beginning of this process. As you know, Council, we have received a lot of emails. And right now, I believe November 18th, there is a meeting with ODNR, and that'll be followed by a meeting with the sewer district, and eventually a joint meeting with Shaker Heights. So that's where we are at that with Lower Lake. The budget. Last Friday, each of you received our proposed 2026 budget. I want to thank all of our department directors, many of which were in committee of the whole, and our assistant directors who jumped into action right really beginning October 1st, my first day in office, to provide a budget and a finance team so that we could get this to you on time. They worked hard, acted swiftly, and collaborated well throughout the process, and I'm grateful to everyone who helped make this possible. I encourage all of you to scrutinize this budget very carefully. I'm sure some of you have looked at it over the weekend. Just so everybody knows, the budget book looks like this. Addie, do we have more of these for the public?
I do not have printed copies, but if someone would like a printed copy, they can email me.
And I should know this. Is this on the website?
Yes, it is. It's on your page.
Thank you. All right. One of these days I'll look at it. So where am I here? Okay. Yeah, scrutinize the budget, and thank you, City Administrator Dumas and our financial consultant, Andy Unetic, for putting this together. And just so you know, the City Administrator will have some words to say about the details in here when she gives her report in a few minutes. And I want you all to know I value your contribution as we will be starting budget hearings Thursday. I want to give a huge shout out to our newest council member, Zenobia Sheets, this weekend. Councilor Sheets single-handedly organized or womaned a food drive to help. Well, you did it with your kids and a friend, right? So I don't want to say you did it completely single-handedly, but we have some great pictures that we put up on the website of the food that she collected, and it's being delivered to the food pantries. Is that correct? All right, and thank you so much for all that and all the people that donated. This is actually, yeah, yes. Of course, I want to encourage everybody to vote tomorrow. There's an election. I'm sure you've heard that. We have election for mayor, 4 city council seats, 3 school board seats, and issue 7, the charter amendment, which I support and the majority of council supports, will also be on the ballot. And that ends my report.
Thank you, Mayor Kuda.
Thank you, Madam President.
Mayor Kuda, do you have one other item?
I do. So, John Gibbon, our former law director, passed away recently. 28 years of service to this community. He retired, I believe, in 2013. I'd like to read this proclamation. Whereas the city of Cleveland Heights mourns the passing of John Haler Gibbon, who departed this life peacefully on October 1st, 2025, at the age of 81, and whereas John Gibbon served with distinction as the Director of Law for the City of Cleveland Heights for 28 years, and 6 years prior as Assistant Law Director, providing steadfast legal counsel and unwavering dedication to the principles of justice, equity, and public service. And whereas during his years as City Law Director, Mr. Gibbon mentored and hired very talented attorneys who continued to serve the city and the region with distinction. And whereas Mr. Gibbon's legal acumen helped position Cleveland Heights at the forefront of municipal law innovation, he successfully argued before the Ohio Supreme Court to expand the definition of nuisance abatement, enabling cities to address not only public safety issues, but also adverse impacts of criminal activity on neighborhoods. And whereas under his leadership, Cleveland Heights has become the first city in Ohio to establish a domestic partnership registry in 2003, legally recognizing same-sex relationships long before the Defense of Marriage Act, a pioneering move that inspired similar action in other municipalities. And whereas Mr. Gibbon guided the city's use of special improvement district legislation to revitalize commercial districts such as Coventry Village, the first CID in Cuyahoga County, and the Cedar Fairmount, Cedar Lee, and played a key role in facilitating redevelopment across the city. And whereas he became an expert in telecommunications and right-of-way law, helping the city of Cleveland Heights leverage federal regulatory changes to establish public access cable channels to televise city council meetings, among the first cities to do so, and to require the installation of an institutional network interconnecting municipal and school facilities in the city. And whereas John Gibbon was a devoted husband, father, and grandfather, a passionate cellist, a skilled woodworker, a dedicated hiker, and a former Peace Corps volunteer in Cameroon, West Africa, whose legacy lives on through his family and the countless lives he touched through his public service and personal kindness. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed by the mayor and city council of Cleveland Heights that we honor and celebrate the life of John H. Gibbon, express our deepest condolences to his family, and recognize his enduring contributions to the city and the broader community. And be it further resolved that this proclamation be entered into the official record of City Council and presented at this November 3rd, 2025 council meeting in solemn tribute to his memory. Pam, would you like to come up and say a few words? You don't have to. Could you come right up to the mic? Thank you.
I would just say thank you so very much for that tribute. It reminded me of some things that actually I hadn't realized and put them all together. He so loved working here as part of his community and with the very talented people that were here with him. And I'm so grateful for this tribute tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And Bonnie Kaplan, would you like to come up and say a few words?
Thank you.
Sure.
I
Former councilwoman.
was a council person here for 20 years, and all those 20 years I served with John Gibbon. And I want to tell you, he taught us so much. He did so much for council and for the city of Cleveland Heights. He was creative. When there was an issue, there were lots of new issues coming before government. And actually, you read many of them. And he didn't know about some of them either. And so the thing about him, which was wonderful, he would go see what was going on in the rest of the country. And if there was something that was pertinent for us, he would bring it back and then make suggestions about how we could use it. And clearly, he was creative, and his love for the city really showed in what he did for all of us. And his memory will go on. He was really a remarkable person, kind, thoughtful, generous with his time and with his opinions, and we all benefited in a wonderful way. And so I'm so happy that you're doing this tonight and that I could be here and to tell you, remember the kind of person that he was, because it influences what you're doing now. And it does influence the city as it is now, because he did a lot of groundbreaking, thoughtful initiatives for the city of Cleveland Heights. So thank you for letting me tell you how much I admired him. He was a wonderful human being. Thank you.
Yeah. I also want to recognize former Director Richard Wong is here and former Councilwoman Nancy Dietrich. Thank you so much for coming. And Pam, I'd like to...
City Administrator's report?
So, good evening, everyone. So, first I'm going to talk about the budget because the mayor told me to. So, in 2025, as I had heard, you had not received the kind of budget that you were looking for a variety of reasons. So we went back and looked at what you had received for 23, 24, and tried to be consistent in what we put together for 2026. So the format is what you're accustomed to. There's individual budgets, of course, for each one of the departments. There is a a all funds page that tells you beginning balances and all the funds, revenue that's anticipated for 2026, what they expect to expend, and what we transferred in to those funds that you've subsidized for over that period of time. So there weren't big changes or difficulties because the structure of government has not changed over that period of time. You didn't create new departments, you didn't get into big ventures that required very much. The only material change that you're going to see, and we'll discuss it then, is the beginning of the repayment of the Leopardo lease. You have a repayment that's due in 2026. And so we did establish funds, of course, for that repayment and also a reserve for the next 2 years while you kind of determine over that a period of, I believe it's 20, 25 years, might be a little longer, how you're going to handle that repayment. And I guess phase 2 of the Leopardo venture, or the venture around the climate change, kind of reducing the carbon footprint activity in phase 2. So that's what you got in the budget, and we will be prepared, as will the department heads, to discuss in detail at the budget hearings whatever your concerns may be. As it relates to the city administrator position, we had a weekly meeting with all of the chiefs and directors that are in charge, of course, of the operations of the entire city in the month of October to get familiar with them and familiar with what they do. So that's the head of city planning, the chief of police, the chief of fire, the head of IT, the head of communications. And so it's a meeting of about 15 folks. So the format that I had them put together for the biweekly reporting, because we're going to biweekly for November and December for a variety of reasons, but so once we've established a base, we don't need to meet weekly because things won't change on a weekly basis. We can do that on biweekly. The format that I put together for the reporting is around their vacancies, if there's any impact to their operations as a result of the vacancies, is there any changes or out of the routine kind of activities they report on for the fourth quarter? Is there anything that we need to address, anything they need assistance on if they have any challenges? And then what they anticipate will be needed in the first quarter of 2026. That's so whomever is elected, we can kind of leave a transition type document of what you need to pay attention to for the first 3 months. So that's kind of where we are. So my reporting will be on each, not all of them, but some of them, just the kind of highlights. In the Division of Police, they currently will have 6 open positions as a result of retirements. They currently have 2 to their basic office patrol officers positions. The current civil service list is exhausted. They're working with Human Resources to post on the National Testing Network to recruit those individuals. In the communications department, we're still deciding what that name is because we have 2 or 3 different names for that department, but Jessica will set us straight on that. They are working with Parks and Recs to plan the November 16th Community Fall Fest. They're also re-engaging Monday.com, which is their project management system to track all their routine and special projects out of comms, including news, media tracking, media requests from all departments, and graphic design requests. Each member of comms is now assigned to another department as the PIO and will start attending their meetings to increase connectivity and information sharing. Out of the IT department, there will be a software examination that will probably take place in the first quarter of this year. They're sending out some requests for information this year around the payroll system. They need to upgrade their payroll system. It's currently handled by the New World internal protocols. We need a timekeeping system and also a payroll system. So they'll be looking at that. They also met with First Energy to try to get fast-tracked for some of the replacement of the LED lighting and also the camera installation. The first area that they'll be looking at will be Noble and Monticello, and they're working with them directly, First Energy, to try to get us fast-tracked so they can provide some power on poles for our camera equipment. And that's the end of my report.
Thank you, City Administrator. Any departmental reports this evening? All right. Moving on, report of the Clerk of Council.
Nothing to report.
Okay, we're going to head into public comment. I want to make one note that Addie will be entering any property owner complaints that we receive during public comment into Access Cleveland Heights tonight as they come forward so that that particular complaint can be appropriately assigned to the appropriate department. So that's something we agreed to do and we'll be doing it going forward. So thank you, Addie, for accepting that challenge.
Bruce Delaney.
So when you come forward, we have, how many do we have, Addie? Not,
About 15.
okay, so we'll give you 3 minutes tonight this evening, sir. Your name and your street or neighborhood.
So my name is Bruce Delaney. I'm a resident of Cleveland Heights. I live on Lincoln Boulevard. Sorry. I grew up in East Cleveland, where my father worked for GE at Neela Park, and I attended Caledonia Elementary School, so I'm very familiar with the Noble Road neighborhood. I'm here tonight to urge the council to approve funding of the Noble Road Business Association. My wife and I are small business owners, although not on Noble Road. As small business owners, we know that having the support of your city makes an extraordinary difference in the success of your business. The merchants in Noble Road have organized and worked to create a vision for their neighborhood that builds on the strength of the community around it. They have the will to make the changes happen. What they need is the support of the city in the form of this grant that's being discussed to help them over the finish line. And I thank you for your attention.
Thank you.
Matthew Carey.
Good evening, Council. My name is Matthew Carey. I live on Overlook Road. I want to thank everyone who has gotten the proposed severance zoning overlay amendment to this point. The overlay is the most urbanist code language I believe Cleveland Heights has ever seen. Form-based, streets first, serious about civic space, and I strongly support its adoption. I do have one piece of constructive feedback, which is focused on parking, because excessive parking can make or break the feeling of a district. I think of places like Legacy Village or Pinecrest. When you're in the shopping areas, they feel pretty good and they're attractive enough to keep people there and keep retail vacancy low, but they don't quite feel authentic. They never really feel like real neighborhoods because they build this nice urbanist space and surround it by a sea of surface parking lots, which kind of takes away from that feeling of being in a city. Right now, the draft plan keeps fairly traditional parking minimums, about 1 space per residential unit, 3 spaces per 1,000 square feet of retail and office, and about 3/4 per hotel room, with reductions capped at 30% of those numbers. I think that's a thoughtful start, but I think it risks some oversupply of parking, especially in the SO1 core, which I think we want to function like a real town center for Cleveland Heights. So I'd like to propose lowering those perhaps in the SO1 district specifically to numbers like maybe half a parking space per unit, or 1.5 to 2 per 1,000 square foot of retail and office space. And especially if the developer can put in a strong shared parking and transportation demand management plan, or if they provide infrastructure that facilitates non-car modes of transportation, so things like bike racks or improved bus stops, things like that. We could also pair this with parking maximums in the core and require unbundled parking so that residents who don't drive aren't forced to pay for stalls that they don't use. There are peer districts that show this can work. Dublin, Ohio's Bridge Street District uses parking plans and shared and off-site tools to right-size parking supply. Shaker Heights has mixed use and shared parking provisions for the Van Aken District. And our own recommended action plan for the district already proposes shared parking tables. So I hope we use those to their full potential. Again, though, I want to emphasize that this is friendly, constructive feedback. Overall, I would like to emphasize that I believe the proposed amendments to the zoning code are absolutely going in the right direction. And I want to say thank you very much to the development team, the Planning Commission, Mayor Kuda, Council, and the Planning and Development staff for all the excellent work that they've done on the code so far. I think with these small adjustments, Severance can become even more of the walkable, mixed income, mixed use development we all want it to be. Thanks.
Chris Brace.
Good evening, folks. Oop, into the microphone. Good evening, folks. My name is Chris Brace. I live in the Cedar Fairmount district. Let me see if I can get that right. I'm going to give a much less eloquent version of what was just said. I very strongly support the rezoning of Severance Town Center into a true downtown, something that matches the character of the rest of Cleveland Heights. It's always struck me as a place that sticks out, like a sore thumb in this, dense, walkable, mixed-use community that I call home. And I am very excited and very grateful to the development team and Ryan Porter and his team for the excellent work that they've done. I also want to provide similar constructive criticism from an urbanist perspective. I think the work that's been done on accessible bike lanes is phenomenal in the plan, and I encourage everyone to look at what's been done there as a great example for the rest of the city. I think it falls down a little bit right in the core in the major commercial corridors, I believe B1 and C4. There are no bike lanes present in these streets. And I think having accessible bike lanes that are protected and high quality will pay off the connection and the work that's already been done in the rest of this plan and allow safe access all the way through into the core of this neighborhood. I also want to call out what I think might be excessive parking on street. Our existing business districts, I think, are phenomenal because they prioritize people and businesses and a shared commercial space. Some of the parking on those main drags is highly dense angled parking, which is double what we have in any neighborhood in Cleveland Heights. And we also see double-sided parallel parking, not just each side of the road, but each side of streets, left in and right side parallel parking. Traffic concerns aside, I don't think this matches the neighborhood character of Cleveland Heights. And there will be plenty of space off street for parking. I think the street itself should be a place for pedestrians, a place for business, a place for commerce, a place for community. And I would strongly on behalf of modern protected bike lanes, and on behalf of right-sized parking on street that prioritizes and puts people first. All that said, I'm very supportive of this plan. I think it is phenomenal. I really want to see this go ahead and go forward. And I wanted to thank council, so many more people than I can name, and obviously Ryan and his team for doing a phenomenal job so far. Thank you so much. And thank you all for listening to me tonight.
That's all I have for legislative agenda items. Moving on to non-legislative, I have Edgar Mitchell.
Good evening, Council. Good evening, Mayor, Law Director, and everyone else that's here. Good evening to you too. Tomorrow we have a very important day coming up when everybody should get out and cast their vote for Cleveland Heights. I would like to say first, before I get back into what I usually come to say, is Cleveland Heights reminds me right now of a caterpillar turning into a butterfly. Because seriously, I see a lot of things in Cleveland Heights that I moved here in 1979. A lot of things that I loved then disappeared, and people too that I knew at that time. But anyway, what I'm trying to say, it seems to me like Cleveland Heights is being rebirthed or reborn, as I should say, in a lot of different situations. Things that I saw a lot of people move out from Cleveland Heights over the years. Now I seem to see a lot of people moving back in. Or maybe that's just a dream I'm having. But I do think that Cleveland Heights is really coming back, to be the city that I think it used to be. And I look forward to Cleveland Heights becoming, the great city that it has, the people in it to make it that great city. Okay, I want to thank Anthony Maddox for a statement he made the last time I was here when he said, when I'm always come talking about a tree that was planted 29, 30 years ago at 1062 Neela View on the tree lawn, and the roots of the tree has destroyed the inner structure of the home. By that I mean it destroyed the sanitary sewers and also the storm sewers that's underneath the house, and I need help getting that taken care of. Okay, I talked, one person did reach out to me, Andre Trapp from the Forestry Department, and he thinks that the tree being a healthy, beautiful tree like it is, he can't really do anything about the tree itself. But what I need is the building departments and the same people that's doing the work that they're doing, like on Kane Park, is looking beautiful. What's going on at Kane Park is going to be a beautiful thing when they get finished with it. So I need the building departments in Cleveland Heights to sit down with me and talk to me about how we're going to fix this problem that the tree has caused. I can understand the tree is new, not new, but a beautiful, healthy tree. But the beautiful, healthy tree have done some really ugly, terrible things to our house. So that's about all I got to say. Anthony Maddox did say last time I was here that someone should reach out to me, as many times as I had mentioned that about the tree, and someone did. And I don't think they would have done that had he not mentioned what he did that day and they heard that. So hopefully they'll hear me and somebody else will reach out and we can dig deep into this thing to try to get a solution to this. I thank you for allowing me to come and speak. And I think it's great that Cleveland Heights has this meeting where it's open to the public and open to the Cleveland Heights residents. We have to give Cleveland Heights credit for that. Okay? Good night, everybody. Have a good day tomorrow. Cast your vote. Hope everything works.
Jose Quiles.
I'm short. Doesn't work that way. Most of you know who I am and why I'm here. You probably will, Councilman Sheets. I'm sorry in advance. I'm going to kick it off with a couple of interesting statistics. Since 2021, we moved in, we have done a total of $1.6 million in business in this city. In sales tax alone, we have generated $116,000. Annual payroll for my business currently breaks $195,000 alone. Until recently, my intention was to offer one more highly skilled position in the beginning quarter of next year because we had the volume of work to support it. It would have required additional investment into the property, as one of the lifts is in remarkably poor condition. The roof in the front facade would have to be addressed first. The roof had about half a dozen leaks until recently. Now I can't count them. That option to offer that position is also gone. When I acquired the loans to purchase the building and finance the repairs, we were in solidly black position. Right now, I'm treading waters at best. I'm selling off personal effects. I'm attempting to borrow additional money to cover payroll and support my daily expenses. Our profit and loss statement since June has been an utter bloodbath. We've lost a third of our business. I haven't laid anybody off, and I'm still the lowest person paid there. Do you know what it's like to try to borrow money when you can't demonstrate profitability as a business owner? Do any of you get it? I made the comment recently to both Mayor Kuda and Councilman Maddox that if we were unlucky enough to have 2 weeks that were bad in a row, I would likely have to make the decision on whether I'm laying off staff or what bills I can or cannot afford. I have tried to appeal to both Jim and Davida to publicly take a stance. I've heard nothing that I am aware of. Privately, both have individually expressed support. This is not enough. Do any of you understand how much it pains me to say all of this publicly and plead for help? The reality is that one of these days, I'm going to stand up here and talk about when I had to lay off my staff. I'm going to have to stand up here and talk about when I am closing my doors instead of what I am doing to try to keep them open. And this conversation may happen uncomfortably soon. For all of the talk about caring about small businesses in this city, I see no action. All of the conversations that we are having will not save my business. The barriers are still there. The dialogue is still the same. Nothing has moved. Nothing has changed. And when I close my doors, it will not be because I didn't try. It will not be because I didn't swallow my pride and stand in front of you people and plead my case again and again and again and again. Persistence, patience, and faith can only achieve so much. The reality is that the only reason that we are hurting is because of what this city has done to us.
Susan Ephraimson.
Madam President,
Jose, we were under the impression that someone from the city was going to have a meeting with you and talk to you. That's why we have not said anything to you. We were waiting for that meeting to take place. If it has not taken place, I'm not sure about that. But we were under the impression that someone was going to meet with you regarding your situation.
I would leave that to Mayor Kuda to discuss what has and has not happened, as I don't feel it's appropriate to talk about what's going on behind the scenes in such a public venue.
Councilor Petrus?
Madam President, I was just going to ask if the administration could provide a status update to us since our last briefing on it.
Well, today, Director Klingscale did meet with Jose and the emails today. Okay, sorry. It was last week. And I know that she's planning on meeting with him again soon to follow up on her discussion. And I've spoken with her about her ideas about how this can be resolved, and she will be putting a plan forward. And it will probably be this week.
All right, moving on, Eddie.
Susan Ephraimson.
Hi, Susan Ephraimson, 3825 Severn Road, and I'm here because I found in my mail or at my door a flyer suggesting we all vote no on issue 7, and it made me very angry because it was filled with so much misdirection and misinformation. It's as if they didn't live through the last 4 years of a Mayor Sarin. As citizens for an elected mayor, we put together what was supposed to be 2 prongs to the government. We proposed an elected mayor, but that was supposed to work together with council. And after it passed, during that interim time, we went to that interim council and said, please, the rest of the charter has to be adjusted so that it works with the mayor. They decided, and Mayor Sarin was on that council, that we'll leave it for the mayor to handle. And so it got pushed off into this last term. And so in the end, we never got that sense of balance. What we got was a mayor who claimed that he had absolute power and all of the problems that come with absolute power. What Citizens for an Elected Mayor proposed was collaboration, accountability, responsiveness, and transparency. How many times do I have to come up here and say this? Everyone agreed, even the people that were against it, the pro and the con, all agreed that council should have the right and the responsibility of inquiry. This amendment talks about good faith communication. It talks about making things work together. It's like the second slice of bread that you need both slices. And that was the vision all along. So what is this flyer saying? That this is some power grab? By who? Does it make any sense for Mayor Kuda to first establish the power of a mayor's office and then try to take that power back from council? I mean, there's got to be easier ways to run a government. Does it make any sense for Council President Larson to be advocating for the parts of the legislation that simplify the number of signatures it takes to get onto the ballot? That actually would create more competition for the council people. That is not trying to consolidate power. It just isn't that. There's no cabal of people working on this. This is people that have been working, for all these years and all these public meetings. We know that it just made me so upset to see this kind of misinformation. This is what's being proposed in issue 7 is good governance. It's not perfect. Perfection in governance, we're never going to see, but don't let good be don't let perfection be the enemy of good. We have an opportunity here. 65% of the people voted to have these two branches of government. 82% of us voted that we do not want a dictatorship.
Susan, can you wrap it up, please?
This is what gets us there. So I just had to get up here and say that. Sorry.
Thank you, Susan.
Erin Flanagan.
Yes, on 7. Yes, on 7.
Good evening. My name is Erin Flanagan. I'm a Cleveland Heights resident, 3091 Essex Road, and an attorney. Tonight, I am formally serving the city with a written notice concerning resolution number 123, 2025, which was introduced for first reading on October 6th of this year. That resolution proposes a joint $500,000 land and water conservation fund grant with Shaker Heights to build the Attleboro-Shelburne Trail across the drained Horseshoe Bed Lake. Although only at first reading, this proposal involves federal funds and lies within the Shaker Lakes Historic District, a property listed on the Federal Register of Historic Places. Any federally funded project that is a federal undertaking under Section 800.16Y of 36 section of the Code of Federal Register requires prior consultation under the National Historic Preservation Act and the Clean Water Act. None of that consultation has occurred. None. Filing this grant before those reviews are complete would expose the city to legal and financial risk and align Cleveland Heights with the sewer district's ongoing unauthorized restoration work at Horseshoe Lake, also not permitted under the federal laws. It's a project that the sewer district has no statutory authority to carry out under Ohio Revised Code, Chapter 661, 6119. I'm asking council to pause any action on this resolution, to preserve all related records, and to seek independent legal review before considering a second reading or submission to the ODNR, which might happen, we don't know, on November 18th. The Shaker Lakes are not a sewer project. They are a legally protected public trust and a part of our region's living history. They deserve decisions be made in the open and under the law. Thank you.
Sharon Sanders.
Good evening, council members and Mayor, I'm sorry. I too am up here about flyers that I received in my mail that I wanted to address. I'm sure you all received these two flyers from our two mayoral candidates, DeVita Russell and Jim Petras. Okay, so there's a comparison. And so I was a little disturbed with some of the comparisons. When I look at the one comparison of DeVita Russell, it compares the records between Jim Petras and DeVita Russell. When I look at the one of Jim Petras, it compares it's someone's character, which is very misleading. So I decided to look on the website to get further information and clarity about the things that are written here. So the first thing that it says is that DeVita Russell is supported by leaders of the Cuyahoga County Republican Party. I don't see that as a bad thing. I think that no matter what your party is, you are a Cleveland Heights resident, which is one of the things that DeVita Russell definitely stands for. Supported by leaders of Republican Party, to me shows that this candidate can work with anyone as long as they have a shared value, and shared interest, which is upholding and making Cleveland Heights a more livable place and a place that everybody want to live in. Working together has always been one of DeVita Russell's strong points. Okay, number 2, it says that she lied about receiving a degree from Cleveland State University, which I think is a strong statement. And so I looked this up on her website, and it says that I find it hard to believe that she lied about it, because on her website clearly states a graduate of the Cleveland State Labor Management Relations Center program, which is a certified program that was back in 1995. They do not have that program as of today, but it was at Cleveland State University. It does not say she has a degree from there. It was a certificate program. It also does say on her website that DeVita Russell has received a bachelor's degree in a dual degree in labor studies, union relations, administration from George Meany National Labor College. So I think the fact that someone lied about something is very misleading and very strong words. It also says that less than 10% of her contributions came from Cleveland Heights. Over 50% of her contributions were from special interest groups in Columbus area and Washington, D.C., which I also find which is misleading. Because as I was reading it, it says DeVita is a member of the labor union for over 45 years, to which she contributed to the PAC, which is the Political Action Committee. And this was a voluntary membership, and they do advocate and support political candidates or causes that benefits working families, school levies, job security, places, or workplace safety.
Ms. Sanders, can you wrap it up for us, please? Your 3 minutes is up.
Okay, but I also wanted to say this in closing. I think that when a person does not have the credentials and feel like they are the underdog, they do tend to, because they don't have the credentials to present, they do tend to present falsifications and try to attack someone's character, which is not a fair thing to do. Thank you.
I am having a little trouble reading this name. Caroline Upshur? Carolee, thank you.
I'm Carolee Upshur, 2614 Hampshire Road, Cleveland Heights. And I happen to be the Republican Central Committeeman who wrote the letter that you referred to in your mailings. First of all, she was not endorsed by the Republican Party. That was the implication of your letter, of your piece of literature. I happen to be a member of the Republican Central Committee in Cuyahoga County, and I took it on myself to write a letter to the Republican residents of Cleveland Heights, which are normally pretty much ignored by the leadership of Cleveland Heights. So I wrote a letter, took it on myself. The Republican Party did not choose to endorse DeVita, but I chose to endorse DeVita. When I looked at who were going to be the candidates, the one thing that I saw was that, Jim, you seem to be a very nice guy. You know, you've been to a lot of things. You've had a couple pieces of legislation in your name. You show up a lot for a lot of events, and I understand you came here when you went to college and you chose to stay, which is a good thing. But the first time I ever heard of you was when you were running for council in 2023. You had no footprint here in the city that I saw at all. And I still have a hard time seeing where you have any vested interest in the city, because until 2023, I never saw anything. When I look at DeVita, I called her. When I looked at that, I contacted her, asked if I could sit down with her. We met, And I asked her some pretty tough questions. Yes, I'm a Republican. We have a lot of disagreements. I think she would admit that. We have a lot of disagreements. But there were a lot of points of common ground. And we still happen to be residents of Cleveland Heights. You cannot ignore a tenth of your residents because they're Republican. You just can't. And so one of the things that struck me with her was the fact that she is vested. I don't see your vesting in this community that I see with her. That's why I chose to support her. I do not see, you don't have a family, and I understand you don't even own property here in Cleveland Heights. To me, if you were vested in the community, the least you could do was own property here. So you know what it's like to be a property owner. I didn't see that with you. On the other hand, she has had a business here. She's been married here. She's lived here most of her life. She's got a 50-year vesting in this community where she has continued to participate in the community she has dealt with. And she has an innate ability to bring people together and people who do not necessarily agree on most things.
Please wrap it up. It's your 3 minutes
Yes.
are up.
And so as a result, she is the one that I think would be the best one of the two of you. And I would love to see you continue on council because I think you've done a good job on council. But I do believe that your literature that you put out is
Wrap it up, ma'am.
not quite adequate and it's not quite true. So.
James Bates.
James Bates, Grosvenor Road. I might sound like a broken record here, but I got this too. This came in my mail today. And when I saw it, I was dismayed. I was dismayed because I'm the co-author of the Republican letter. I'm not on state central committee. I'm not a central committee person for the Cuyahoga County Republican Party. I'm just a Republican who lives in Cleveland Heights, who supports DeVita Russell for mayor. And for many of the reasons that you just heard Carolia talk about, that's why I support DeVita Russell. DeVita Russell has spent 50 years invested in this community. Jim, while you loaned your campaign $10,000, this woman went to the county and got $10,000 for the Noble Merchants Association, the ARPA funds. Council will consider legislation tonight, second reading, $318,000 for the Noble Merchants Association. That's commitment. That's investment in this community. You know, I was hoping that this election could kind of stay clean and stay above board. And I've really tried very hard to, you know, it hurts my heart. It really does, because I love this city. I do. I really do. But just as Carolee said, you know, yeah, I'm a Republican, but we got a voice here too. And that voice doesn't get heard. And nobody gives a damn about us here. You know, I sat here and I worked together with Susan Afroimson, with Josie Moore, to oust the last mayor that was no good. We came together to do that. But I believe in my heart of hearts, and I'm putting out a plea tonight to Cleveland Heights to put respect on DeVita Russell's name. This woman has earned to sit at that dais. I haven't voted for a Democrat since Barack Obama. But tomorrow I'm casting my ballot for DeVita Russell. Because God damn it, she's earned it. She's earned it. This woman is a mother, and that's what Cleveland Heights needs right now. We need somebody that cares about this city, that's going to bring us together and unify us. And DeVita Russell is that person. And Jim, this is no slight against you, because I think you're a good guy too. But I think you'd be best suited sitting right where you are. But it's time to elevate another voice in this room, and that voice is DeVita Russell. I got 13 seconds left, so I'm gonna take all my time. And I'm gonna say it again. If you didn't hear it tonight, hear from James Isaac Bates II. DeVita Russell has earned the right to be mayor of Cleveland Heights. Cast your vote tomorrow for DeVita Russell. Anthony Maddox, me and you finally found something we can agree on, brother.
Josie Krampitz? No? Josie? Okay. Then that's it.
All right. Thank you, Addie. Now that we're through public comment, we're going to begin with our legislation process. So feel free to read the first ordinance, Addie.
I have ordinance number 218-2025 on first reading, an ordinance authorizing and approving the presentation of entertainment programs in Kane Park for the year 2026 and declaring the necessity that this legislation become immediately effective as an emergency measure, introduced by Mayor Kuda.
So moved.
I get a second? Second from Councilor Sheets. Any discussion? All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes.
Next, I have resolution number 219-2025 on first reading, a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute an agreement with ABC Equipment Rental and Sales, a Sourcewell cooperative purchasing vendor, for the purchase of 2 Kubota utility vehicles with attachments for the use by Parks and Recreation Department, and declaring the necessity that this legislation become immediately effective as an emergency measure, introduced by Mayor Kuda.
So moved.
Can I get a second, please?
Second.
Any discussion?
Just that Addie and I may need helmets for these later on, but we'll discuss that later. Thank you.
I already have my helmet.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Next, I have resolution number 220-2025 on first reading, a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute an agreement with Best Truck Equipment, Inc. for the purchase of 4 SCAG commercial mowers and 1 SCAG hurricane blower for the use by the Parks and Recreation Department, and declaring the necessity that this legislation become immediately effective as an emergency measure, introduced by Mayor Kuda.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Next, I have resolution number 221-2025 on first reading as amended 11/3/2025, a resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with Lead Guru Ohio LLC, a certified lead abatement contractor, for the use of Lead Safe Ohio grant funds in connection with the abatement of lead-based paint hazards at permanent parcel number 684-18-041, providing compensation therefore and declaring the necessity this legislation becomes immediately effective as an emergency measure, introduced by Mayor Kuda.
So moved.
Second.
Second from Councilor Sheets. Any discussion? All right, go ahead. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Next, I have resolution number 222-2025 on first reading, a resolution authorizing the mayor to apply for grant funding under the Cuyahoga County Department of Development's Community Development Supplemental Grant Program, and to make accessible improvements in Cleveland Heights public parks, and declaring the necessity that this legislation become immediately effective as an emergency measure, introduced by Mayor Kuda.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Next, I have resolution number 223-2025 on first reading, a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute a contract with Santec Consulting Services, Inc. to prepare a housing needs assessment for the city of Cleveland Heights, and declaring the necessity this legislation becomes immediately effective as an emergency measure, introduced by Mayor Kuda.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes.
Next, I have resolution number 229-2025 on first reading, a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute an agreement with Panzica Construction to provide the work necessary for the public improvement of renovating the kitchen areas in fire stations 1 and 2, and declaring the necessity this legislation becomes immediately effective as an emergency measure, introduced by Mayor Kuda.
So moved.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Thank you. Discussion. I would like to say something. We've been waiting for a long time for these projects in the fire department houses 1 and 2 kitchens. These folks work there many, many hours, and they deserve to have a clean, safe, and perhaps a little bit on the aesthetic side, lovely place to cook and to eat their meals. So I'm very happy to support this legislation this evening. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? No. Motion passes.
All right, first readings only now. I have resolution number 224-2025 on first reading. A resolution authorizing the mayor to execute an agreement with CXT Inc., a Sourcewell cooperative purchasing vendor, for the purchase and installation of a precast concrete bathroom for Dennison Park, and declaring the necessity that this legislation become immediately effective as an emergency measure, introduced by Mayor Kuda. And I believe you said you're referring that to...
Yes, I assigned it to the CRR committee, Councilor Maddox's committee.
Next, I have ordinance number 225-2025 on first reading, an ordinance amending Part 13 Building Code of the Codified Ordinances of Cleveland Heights to update the city's regulations regarding public notice for the Architectural Board of Review, introduced by Mayor Kuda. I believe you referred that one as well.
Yes, to Housing and Building, and that would be Councilor Petrus.
Next, I have ordinance number 226-2025 on first reading, an ordinance amending various sections of Part 11 Zoning Code of the Codified Ordinances of the City of Cleveland Heights, introduced by Mayor Kuda, and accompanying that ordinance number 227-2025 on first reading, an ordinance changing the zoning map of the City of Cleveland Heights to map the Severance Overlay Zone on Severance Town Center and adjacent parcels, generally east of South Taylor Road, south of Mayfield Road, west of Crest Road, and north of Severn Road, introduced by Mayor Kuda as well. And I believe we formally are making that to Planning Commission, correct?
Yes, we're formally assigning that to the Planning Commission. The calendar is on the city's website for when the meetings will be held coming forward, and there will be a public hearing on December 15th that you're all certainly welcome to come to all the meetings, but especially that December 15th public hearing. Thank you.
Next, I have resolution number 228-2025 on first reading, a resolution authorizing the mayor to submit an application to the Ohio Department of Development for a grant under the Advanced Energy Fund grant program to accept funding if awarded, and declaring the necessity of this legislation become immediately effective as an emergency measure, introduced by Mayor Kuda. And I believe you're referring to that to your committee.
Yes, I assigned that to the Municipal Services and Environmental Sustainability Committee. The grant has been applied for, so I'll be bringing this legislation into my November 18th meeting.
Moving on to second readings, I have ordinance number 153-2025 on second reading, an ordinance amending the use, regulations, and rates for admission and other services for the Cleveland Heights Community Center, City Parks, and Cumberland Pool for the calendar years 2025 and 2026, and repealing ordinance number 125-2020, introduced by Mayor Sarin, but.
Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Right? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes.
Next, I have resolution number 214-2025 on second reading, a resolution authorizing a grant agreement with Noble Area Business Association and declaring the necessity this legislation become immediately effective as an emergency measure. And I believe this is going to third reading.
That's correct. Thank you very much. And do I have any committee reports?
Yes.
Councilor Cobb.
Yes, the Administrative Services Committee met last week, and we have made some recommendations in the executive session to fill out some vacancies that we have. Something very important coming up is a vacancy on our Planning Commission with the retirement of one of our longstanding members whose name I won't mention tonight because I don't know that he's made it public yet. So we will be opening that up and accepting applications for the Planning Commission with an eye to having that vacancy filled by their first meeting in January. So if you're interested, please go to the council website and look for the application, and please try and submit it with a cutoff date of December 1st. I'll have Addie try and get something more formal up on our website. That's all I had.
Any other committee reports? Councilor Petrus.
Thank you, Madam President. The Housing and Building Committee is meeting next Monday, November 10th, and among other things, we're discussing a piece of legislation regarding public notice for the Architectural Board of Review. An agenda will be posted soon. Thank you.
All right, Municipal Services and Environmental Sustainability Committee will be meeting November 18th at 6 p.m. The main topic for discussion will be the revised Complete and Green Streets legislation as recommended by the Transportation Mobility Committee, as well as a piece of legislation that was assigned us tonight for the grant that we're applying for. That being said, do I have any old business? New business?
Yes, I have new business.
Councilor Sheets, new business.
I have submitted a resolution to Mayor Kuda or on Mayor Kuda's behalf to allow him to collaborate with the food banks or any other intergovernmental agencies to seek assistance for the SNAP benefit recipients that has been affected. If any funding does come in, I'm asking that be overseen by the council to allocate those funds to residents as needed.
Thank you. Council member comments. Councilor Maddox.
Thank you, Madam President. Just along with that, I just want to thank the community for stepping up, not just Cleveland Heights, but the surrounding area to stand in a gap for so many of our residents who are in need right now. It's devastating. Our church was completely cleaned out on Sunday from all of our resources just in a matter of hours, and we're seeing that play out all across the city. And so the things that you're doing in your grocery stores, dropping off things, it absolutely matters. The only other thing I want to add to that is just because someone doesn't look like they're in need doesn't mean that they are. And so one of the best things you can do right on your street is check on your seniors. They tend to start cutting back on things that they shouldn't and eating things a little bit differently if you don't step in. And so just checking on them, making sure, checking if you have relatives, checking and see what's actually in their refrigerators, going into their cabinets, seeing what type of meals they prepare, because they'll cut things that they just absolutely shouldn't, but they won't put pressure on their loved ones to tell them so. And so we're starting to see that now. So not just what's happening with SNAP, but that's something to please look out on, especially for the holiday season. But if you're connected to any seniors right now, stop in on them. Ask them what they've been eating lately. Try to get in those cabinets and those refrigerators, because they won't be honest about the fact that they're cutting their meals in ways they absolutely shouldn't, and it's affecting their medications and things like that. And so we're seeing that across the community. And so I just want to say thank you, but just point that out. Please hold them accountable. I know they don't like it sometimes, but do whatever you got to do to get in that refrigerator and those cabinets and get a clear understanding of what they're eating, how they're eating, and how often. That goes a long, long way. And so I just want to say thank you to the community for loving on each other during this time. It's a shame that we have to do this, but I'm not surprised, just based on how Cleveland Heights residents are, that we're stepping up for each other. So again, thank you so much.
Vice President Russell.
I would like to piggyback off of something you said that happened the other day. We definitely got to look out for our seniors. We are finding, and I'm finding, more seniors walking the neighborhoods who may have some dementia or some Alzheimer's issues. And we caught one the other day that was walking down my street who actually fell and was disoriented and continued to walk down the street. I came home from work, had to stop and call a wellness check to the police department to actually come get him. So I find this is happening more and more often. If we find someone who was walking the neighborhood, who is elderly with a cane, who may have mismatched shoes or something, please take a moment to call the police for a wellness check so that person can actually get some help. Please just don't let that person continue to walk away and never do nothing about it. You never know what type of need that person is in. And I do know that from firsthand, and I think Councilman Posh as well, because both of our parents were in Alzheimer's. My mother is having issues with Alzheimer's, and Mr. Posh's father as well. So my mother lives around the corner, but sometimes we find her walking. So I just want everybody to know, keep an extra lookout on our seniors right now, especially when it comes to food disparities. Thank you.
Any other council comments? All right. I'm going to give my report this evening, and I first of all would like to thank all the Cuyahoga County mayors and city managers who called for action to address the food security crisis resulting from the federal government shutdown. And to all our local food pantries, all the churches that belong to this network that supports those folks in need, including my church, Councilor Maddox's church. And also a special thanks to Councilor Sheets for organizing the very successful food donation drop-off yesterday at City Hall. I believe you got 4 tables full, right? All right, well done, ma'am, well done. Thank you to Mayor Kuda, City Administrator Dumas, Andy Unetic, and all the Finance Department and department heads who contributed to the budget book for 2026. The book was delivered to council on Friday, October 31st. It was due November 1st. That was very exciting to have that on time in our hands. This was a very important step to delivering an approved budget for 2026 before the end of the year. Budget hearings begin this Thursday, November 6th. Addie's scheduled 2026 budget hearings in collaboration with the mayor and department heads. Our first hearing is this Thursday at 10 a.m. Next week, there will be 3 more hearings. Dates, times, and agendas are on the city's calendar. Congratulations to On the Rise Artisan Breads at Cleveland Heights Bakery for being recognized as one of the top 10 pastry makers in the world. The bakery represented the United States and a French city. Mondial du Pain. A prestigious international baking competition. International, folks, in France. Then finally, the Legal Aid Society is laying the groundwork to empower Cleveland Heights tenants to take action to rid their homes of lead hazards using the rent deposit process. The Legal Aid Society has produced 2 flyers that will inform tenants on how to rent deposit when housing issues are a problem, and lead poisonings, know your rights, remedies, and resources. They provided me with a link to these brochures. If anyone wants copies, please let me know. I'm happy to get them to you. And most finally, if you haven't voted out already, please vote tomorrow. Meeting is adjourned.